This girl was in a coma for 13 years because of an accident. From a 17-year-old girl, she has now become a 30-year-old aunt. She looked in the mirror and couldn't believe her eyes. She couldn't even adapt to her voice. What happened to make the girl fall into such a difficult situation? Let's get into the movie. This girl's name is Woo Seo-ri. Since her parents lost, she was adopted by her uncle and loved her very much. Seo-ri is a very beautiful and talented girl with a talent for playing the violin. She was even planning to study abroad in Germany to develop her talent. Such a wonderful girl is truly a bright moonlight of so many teenage boys, and our Woojin is no exception. Woojin is not even a classmate at school or has any acquaintance with Seo-ri. They simply touch each other. They saw each other a few times on the road, but that made Woojin extremely nostalgic. He sketched the girl's portrait to look at day and night. In fact, Woojin also tried to find out. Once on the road, he accidentally saw her wearing a uniform with the name Naksumi. To be sure, the next day he called Naksumi's name. Indeed, Seo-ri came back, but the young man did not know that he had misunderstood. Naksumi was the name of her best friend. That day, because she was wearing her friend's uniform, Woojin mistook her name. The next day, the two of them accidentally met on the bus. He tried to muster up the courage to talk to her, but just as he was about to show the girl his drawing, Seo-ri's best friend came. Woojin looked shy and immediately left. Get out. He found out that because he was in a hurry, so he had pulled Seo-ri's keychain. Woojin braved the rain to run after the bus. At this time, it was raining heavily on the road. In front of the bus, there was a truck that accidentally dropped items, causing the car behind to lose control, made multiple accidents. At this time, Woojin also ran to the place and witnessed everything. His spirit completely collapsed when he saw that the name of the dead victim was Nosumi. Also because of that accident, a beautiful and talented girl was living in poverty, being a vegetable for 13 years. A boy with a bright future also became taciturn and eccentric. Even though he became a model designer, he always lived a miserable life and did not want to date anyone. Returning to reality, after waking up, although very shocked, Seo-ri also had to accept the reality that she had missed her youth, but luckily she still kept her life, so she tried to practice physical therapy with the hope that she could soon recover like a normal person. But during this time, other cruel truths were gradually revealed. She had been in a coma for 13 years, but her uncle and aunt had never come to visit her. Even her close friend, who had an accident with her, was nowhere to be found. Every time Seo-ri asked about this, the nurse immediately found a reason to avoid it. Day she accidentally learned that this was the hospital for people abandoned by their loved ones. Because she wanted to find out the truth, Seo-ri secretly escaped in a truck to get close to the house where she used to live. But it was a different city after 13 years. It's really changed a lot. Even the streets are no longer the same. Seo-ri used her memory to find her way home. After walk in a while, she saw the familiar house, but when she got there, she saw that a lot of things had changed. The housekeeper's first day at work, so she didn't know anyone. Seeing that the girl said the owner of this house was her uncle, the housekeeper also obeyed and led Seo-ri in. Seo-ri saw that the house had indeed changed a lot, but when she entered the living room and saw the dog she had previously raised, there was no doubt that she was so happy that she burst into tears. The housekeeper saw that the owner looked pale, that she went to the kitchen to make this girl a glass of juice to regain strength. Unexpectedly, when she got there, she saw the owner sleeping without even realizing it. The housekeeper didn't think much of it and immediately carried her to the second floor to let her rest. Late at night, Woojin returned home and heard the housekeeper say his nephew had returned and was sleeping on the second floor, so he went up to see how his nephew was doing. But at this time, Woojin's real nephew was outside ringing the bell. No one opened the door, so the boy had to enter the code himself. Yu-chan entered the house and saw no one. The boy thought his uncle was upstairs, so he went up, but the scene in front of him made him panic when he saw uncle kissing a strange girl's cheek. Suddenly, a strange girl appeared in his house. Seo-ri thought Woojin was a pervert, so she went crazy and beat him. The housekeeper went in to witness this scene. They were also confused and didn't understand what was going on. After realizing it was all a mistake, they sat down together to clarify this matter. It turned out that this house had been bought by Woojin's parents 11 years ago, and they also don't know where Seo-ri's aunt and uncle have moved to. The dog Daewoo was left here when the old owner left, so Woojin has adopted it from then until now. So the story is clear. This place is no longer her home. Seo-ri had to apologize to everyone for the misunderstanding just now and leave. She quickly ran to the address of her uncle's old company, but this building had been redeveloped a long time ago, and that company was no longer here. He had no choice but to go to the police station to report to find people, but she didn't have identification papers to prove her identity. She always said she was only 17 years old this year, so she had not been issued an ID card yet. The police there thought she was a mental patient escaping from the camp. In the end, Seo-ri wandered to the old house of two close friends, but everything had changed. Everyone said that the people here had all moved to other places, so after 13 years of sleeping, she felt like she was lost in another world. She couldn't even adjust to looking at her appearance in the mirror because there was nowhere to go, so she kept wandering on the streets, months. In the end, she could only take shelter in a slide. When it rained heavily, all the memories seemed to come rushing back. The little girl was suddenly forced to grow up and cried in the rain, and then fell asleep without realizing it. Returning to Woojin, just because appearance changed, the housekeeper didn't recognize him. After a night of sleeping on the slide at the amusement park, the next morning, when she woke up, the sun was high in the sky. Although she was very hungry, she had no money, so she could only watch the little student eat greedily. At this time, a kind woman saw her pitiful, so this one directed her to a place to distribute food to homeless people nearby. She's so unlucky. Everything she did was unlucky. Because she was kind, she let a poor man get the food first, but when it was her turn, it had nothing left. Fortunately, the woman who distributed the food saw that she seemed to be very hungry, so she gave her a cake to eat temporary. She immediately found a cool place to enjoy it. So-ri had just peeled the cake and put it in her mouth. When she saw the advertisement on the side of the road was blown by the wind. In the end, because of her honest nature, she had to put aside her hunger, put the cake down, and go to do a good thing. At this moment, Woojin came from nowhere. In his arms, holding a measuring tape, everything appeared in front of him. Unknowingly, he sat down right in the position where So-ri had left the cake. She was surprised to see her food destroyed, but she didn't realize that this was the same guy from before. Knowing was wrong. Woojin took So-ri to buy a new cake. While going to buy the cake, So-ri saw a woman dropping money on the street, so she hurried, ran after to return it, but ran all the way to the pier before she could return a few coins. Then she didn't know where she had gotten lost. There was no way she could only continue wandering in search of her uncle and aunt whereabouts. Even the laundromat they used to go to, but no one knew where they had moved to. Finally, she suddenly remembered her old house. She thought there might still be her things there before, so she went back there. The honest boy Yu-chan saw that she was very sincere, so he agreed. Then, he helped her distract his uncle so she could find things. But at this time, Woojin discovered that there was a strange noise, so he went downstairs to check it out. It turned out that the housekeeper had just returned from the market. Yu-chan looked around and couldn't see So-ri anywhere, so he thought she had found her things and left. At midnight that night, the whole family suddenly heard a pitiful cry. The nephew and uncle were about to go downstairs to check. After 2 steps, the housekeeper scared them before could calm down. Someone suddenly came out of nowhere, making the 2 of them scream in fear. It turned out that So-ri was so hungry that she crawled like that. The housekeeper saw that and quickly served her dinner. It turned out that this house had a secret room that they did not know about, so everything she wanted to find was still there. Just now, after going inside, she found her things and wanted to go out. But because she was so hungry and tired, she fell asleep without realizing it, knowing that she would scare people in the middle of the night. So-ri kept apologizing to everyone while eating, because it was already past midnight, so Yu-chan asked his uncle to let So-ri sleep in that room tonight. Woojin initially didn't want to let strangers stay, but because his nephew begged so much, he had to agree. That night, So-ri couldn't sleep, but sat outside in the garden, holding her dog, and looking at the house she grew up in. Yu-chan came, but couldn't see her, so he went out to look for her and confide in her. So-ri said Yu-chan that she was once a very happy little girl. Her father purposely built this house so that she could comfortably practice the violin. When she was 14 years old, her parents died in an accident, and then her uncle and aunt also loved her so much. But after a long sleep, the people she loved seemed to disappear from the earth. Hearing that Yu-chan also felt that this girl was pitiful. Anyway, she couldn't stay long, so the next morning, she said goodbye to everyone and left. Before going out, the housekeeper gave a bag of food and said, when she's hungry, she can come here. But she hadn't yet stepped out of the gate when suddenly some people said they were coming to see the house. It seemed like Woojin's parents had put this house up for sale, and they were planning to demolish it to build a building here. Hearing that So-ri was extremely panicked and rushed to ask him what was going on. But Woojin's parents had only just announced the sale of the house. After all, he was not the owner of this house. At that moment, the dog suddenly jumped out of his arms. Yu-chan, so everyone hurriedly chased after. So-ri immediately hugged the dog to escape from the oncoming motorbike. Seeing her lying there made the uncle and nephew extremely panicked. There was a lot of blood around. At this time, So-ri just woke up and quickly explained that it was just the grape juice that the housekeeper had given her earlier. Although there was nothing to worry about, her face was also scratched in a few places. Yu-chan took this opportunity to use the excuse that So-ri had saved the dog. He asked his uncle to let her stay here for a while. Woojin, who doesn't like interacting with strangers, kept refusing. At this time, Yu-chan said that if he couldn't, he should return the dog to So-ri. After all, she are the original owner of it. At this point, Woojin had to compromise and agree to let her stay for another month. At this time at the hospital, Hoon-tae, after many days of visiting his new crush and discovered she has woken up and disappeared. It turns out that all these years, he was the one who paid So-ri's hospital fees. He also also tried to take the exam to become a doctor 4 times. He hopes to be able to save the bright moonlight of his life. But now when everything was about to be completed, So-ri suddenly disappeared. Hoon-tae followed his memory to find So-ri's old home address. He heard 2 of Yu-chan's friends say that yesterday, a woman around 30 years old came looking for, but she had already left. He was disappointed, gave this guy his business card, and hoped that if you saw her again, you would tell her that someone was looking for her. By the time So-ri heard this news, 2 of Yu-chan's friends had lost their business cards because they were busy buying milk. But when she heard that person was at the hospital, she thought it was someone from the hospital that she ran away, find her. So she said they didn't need to care. Since So-ri was here, the dog has been eating and living much more actively these days. Woo-jin found himself being left out and was depressed. He was about to go upstairs when he bumped into a tree placed right in the middle of the stairs. So-ri knew she was causing trouble, so she hurriedly explained, because she saw that the tree looked dry, so she moved there to absorb the sunlight. At this point, Woo-jin was truly speechless. He angrily walked out, telling himself that it was just only a month. Just try to endure it. After Woo-jin left, So-ri also decided to take the violin to be repaired, but the violin had been unused for so long that it was damaged quite a lot. The shop owner said it would take a long time and the cost would be about 2,000 won. So-ri was startled when she heard this. She didn't expect that after 13 years the prices would escalate to such an extent, but she didn't have any money. Thinking of this, she could only helplessly carry the guitar back home, but it was the guitar her mother gave her. So So-ri was determined to find ways to earn money to be able to repair it. She borrowed Yu-chan's computer to look for a job online, but her resume is really sketchy, to be honest. Because of the accident 13 years ago, the only thing she has now is a high school diploma. Going to a music center for young children, it was very difficult for her to get the chance to play the piano for the manager to listen to. But because she hadn't practiced for so long, she could only play half a song and her entire hand was stiff, so she was rejected for the job. While wandering aimlessly, So-ri suddenly saw a notice recruiting part-time workers. But when the other person learned that she was 30 years old, they could only shake her head and refuse. Indeed, for such jobs, they only recruit people of that age 20, and she was already too old. Suddenly missing 13 years of her life made her life very difficult and chaotic. She could not go through her youthful years like everyone else, and even more so unable to realize her own dream. Fortunately, at this time, Yu-chan came home from practice and accidentally saw So-ri. Looking at her expression, the boy understood that perhaps her job search situation was not very positive, so he hurriedly invited So-ri to eat tteokbokki to relieve her mood, thinking that everything was hopeless. But the next morning, the 2 of them heard So-ri's happy screams. It turned out to be the center she came to yesterday. They called to say that their lecturer suddenly had to have an appendectomy, so they hoped So-ri could come and teach there for 3 weeks. Even though it was only a temporary job, it also made So-ri extremely happily. As soon as she was sure she could make money, So-ri immediately took the violin to the repair shop and said she would come pick it up when she received her salary. At this time, Woo-jin was making coffee at home and suddenly accidentally pressed the housekeeper's phone call. The other end of the line said they were from the music center. They say there are too many parents who object to someone not having a degree in teaching their children, so they asked him to tell So-ri that she didn't need to come anymore, even though he didn't want to worry about money at all. But he had already heard it, so he had to leave a message at the door for So-ri. But before he could finish writing, there was a phone call, so Woo-jin quickly left. When So-ri saw the note, she only saw a few words of the music school calling. She didn't think much and thought it was encouragement by Yu-chan, so she happily got ready to go to work. After arriving at work, Woo-jin suddenly realized that he hadn't finished writing down a message for So-ri. He was worried that So-ri wouldn't understand everything, so he quickly returned home. But when it was time to meet her, he wondered how to say something, because Woo-jin saw So-ri's happy look when she heard the news of being accepted, and he also accidentally saw her at the coffee shop, was very disappointed when she was rejected. Last night, he went downstairs and saw So-ri staying up past midnight practicing for today's lecture. Now that he said that she was fired, he couldn't help but wonder so much that he took her there without realizing it. Seeing So-ri so excited, Woo-jin had to run after her and try to tell her clearly, but because the place was too noisy, So-ri didn't listen clearly. He was helpless and shouted, but at that moment, the outside speaker turned off the sound, so everyone around knew that this poor girl was fired before she could go to work for the first day. It was like lightning struck her, and she burst into tears in helplessness. But then, So-ri brushed it off tears and reassured herself. She suddenly realized that although the man in front of her always seemed mean and unpleasant, he was actually a good person. So-ri and Woo-jin returned home, then she borrowed computer of Yu-chan to continue to find fragile hope for herself. The next morning was the day of Daewoo's routine checkup, but this dog, because was attached to its old owner, so it refused to follow Woo-jin out. In the end, he had to listen Yu-chan's words, brought So-ri along. On the way back, when the car was stopped at a red light, So-ri suddenly saw her uncle in front of her. She didn't think much, but immediately opened the car door and rushed down the street in the middle of the traffic. Crowded, she kept risking her life to chase after her uncle. This image made Woo-jin's mind become chaotic. He remembered the accident that year. If he hadn't told her to get off later, maybe she was safe. Because of what had tormented him for so many years, it became a psychological wound that could never be healed. So-ri was panicking in the middle of the street when she suddenly felt someone holding her hand and pulling her back. Turning around, she only saw Woo-jin with his helpless eyes and begged her not to go. So-ri really didn't understand why he suddenly did that. After the light turned green, So-ri could no longer see her uncle. Because of this, she felt that it was Woo-jin's fault. No matter how Woo-jin was helpless to explain, she still didn't want to listen. She just asked Woo-jin to leave her alone, like the past few days. After that, So-ri wandered around looking for her uncle until late at night. Yu-chan saw that his uncle had returned, but So-ri was nowhere to be seen. So he worriedly asked, but Woo-jin said she was already an adult and didn't need to worry about anything. But Yu-chan clearly understood that So-ri's soul was only 17 years old. So-ri also returned later, but as soon as they met Woo-jin, they both didn't say anything but deliberately avoided each other. At midnight that night, Yu-chan panicked when he saw his uncle carrying a suitcase out. He said he would stay in the office for the next month. Yu-chan knew exactly what his uncle did. It was because of So-ri, but didn't expect that she would hear all of these words, because she knew that staying over would make the landlord uncomfortable from that day on. So-ri posted notices everywhere, looking for her uncle. She just hoped she could soon find her relatives and move away, so Woo-jin could return home. Today, So-ri happened to see her uncle on the street again. This time, she was able to catch up, but the result was a mistake. This made her realize that maybe she mistakenly blamed Woo-jin that day. After all, Woo-jin was only worried that she was in danger, but she blamed him. So-ri wanted to find a chance to apologize to Woo-jin, but she didn't know what to do. Just when she saw the housekeeper making a boxed lunch to bring to Woo-jin, she offered to help and took on this task for the housekeeper. When she got there, she saw that the whole office was deserted, shadow of a person. So-ri had no choice but to sit and wait. She intended to write down a message for Woo-jin, but accidentally dropped the pen, so she crawled under the table. By the time Woo-jin returned and saw her, he crawling out screaming in fear. So-ri finally apologized for blaming him wrongly that day. She just hoped Woo-jin would return home soon and promised that she would leave there as soon as she found her uncle and aunt, although Woo-jin did not immediately agree. So-ri still hoped that he would return home soon, but that night she waited at the door until she fell asleep and still could not see Woo-jin, so she decided to go and tell Woo-jin that she was going to move. But Woo-jin's colleague said he was out. So-ri hurriedly chased him to the coffee shop, but before could sit down, she saw Woo-jin's partner coming to discuss work. So-ri could only hide in a corner and wait, but a later seconds she couldn't see him. Woo-jin kept his eccentric habit as he walked, taking out a tape measure to measure here and there. So outsiders see this action, they thought he was a pervert, so they intended to rush to beat Woo-jin. Luckily, So-ri appeared in time to explain the misunderstanding. However, not only did she not receive thanks, but she was also blamed for taking care of many everything. So-ri angrily argued with Woo-jin. After angry and leaving, she realized that she had offended him again. So that night, So-ri asked Yu-chan help. Yu-chan, after many tricks and calling over and over again, but his uncle refused to come home. He had to personally come and invite his uncle to grill meat and confide in his uncle. He just don't understand why Woo-jin has become what is now. Yu-chan was indeed very troubled. He just hopes his uncle can return home soon. Even before leaving, Yu-chan also left behind a photo that the nephew and uncle took 13 years ago. Because So-ri never saw the homeowner return, she decided to find a room to leave, knowing that every time they met it would be difficult to talk properly. So she wrote the apology and left it in Woo-jin's room. However, as soon as she got downstairs, she saw Woo-jin returning. Moreover, this time his attitude was very different. He also told So-ri that the next time she feeds Daewoo, remember to add jam to make it easier to digest. He implicitly replied that she could continue to stay here. Thinking of this, So-ri was extremely happy. At this moment, she suddenly remembered her farewell note left on Woo-jin's desk, so she hurriedly ran up there to get the piece of paper back. In the end, there was only the toiletry she left on the table. She said it was a gift for him. This way of giving a gift really surprised the recipient, but the meaning really doesn't smell as bad as we thought. It turns out this room has a window in the attic facing the sun. This is a special design sign that Seori's father previously made for her. There's only one thing, that she accidentally broke the door handle, so Woojin had absolutely no idea it could be opened. It turned out that the toilet pine needle was the tool to open that door. Seori walked over and guided Woojin to open it. The moment they both enjoyed this cool breeze, it felt like all the knots in their hearts had been completely removed. Woojin was also able to give her a rare smile and say thank you for the gift. Just pulling it out was easy to pull in, but it was a bit difficult. Seori struggled so much that she slipped and fell into Woojin's arms. The distance was so close that Seori suddenly felt shy, so they were finally able to gather, being together and enjoying a breakfast filled with laughter. At this time, outside the door, there was a strange woman watching everything. Seori wanted to make money quickly, so she took a part-time job at home. She sat all night peeling onions until her eyes cried, making the whole family woke up in a panic. But this job only earned her a few coins. Perhaps it would take a long time to earn the full 2,000 won. The next morning, Yu Chan's friend came to his house to call him to go to school, but he pulled this friend away to help Seori peel onions again until close to class time. Then Woojin reluctantly had to drive them to school. Before leaving, he almost bumped into the tree. Seori left in the middle of the stairs. Seori panicked and tried to move, but Woojin said to leave it as is, so it could absorb the sunlight. It seemed Woojin's mood was much better today. Even after taking Yu Chan to school, he thought about taking out a tape measure to measure, but remembered what Seori said before, so he quickly withdrew his hand and happily went to meet the customer. But when Woojin was having a headache about the project, he accidentally saw Seori passing by. What is worth noting is that she had just entered the bar. Woojin couldn't concentrate. In his mind, he kept remembering the words Seori said to Yu Chan's friends. As long as she had a lot of money, she would do anything. Thinking of this, Woojin could no longer calm down. He quickly accelerated the pace of working with customers. Then he quickly said goodbye and rushed towards the opposite bar. But because it was daytime, the bar was very empty. Even the security guard had to sit and eat tteokbokki and chat. But Woojin rushed in to find someone. He was determined not to believe what people said, that there had been no girls in here, so he still rushed into each room to search. The security guard ran out of patience, so he threw Woojin out. Woojin refused to give up and kept screaming and calling Seori's name. Fortunately, at this time, Seori also came out from the side. She thought that because of the strange measurement, he was misunderstood as a pervert, and she rushed to relieve the siege. It turned out that Seori went to the sock factory next door to get a job. Before coming here, she was lured by some aunties on the side of the road to become a fashion model. That's why Woojin misunderstood. Woojin was so embarrassed and hurriedly left that he forgot his shoes. When they got close to the fountain, Seori noticed that there was a sign below that said drinking water. Indeed, she is not possible to absorb all of human civilization, so she thought that people were now handing out public water. So even though Woojin tried to stop her, she still rushed forward and drank continuously. It was that naive image that made Woojin seem to have been shaken. Suddenly at this moment, Woojin felt something was not quite right. When he saw the security guard pick up the public drink paper and stick it back in place, Seori suddenly woke up and spat out all the water. But after all, she had already drunk a lot of water. Fortunately, she didn't have any problems afterward. The two of them returned home together. On the way, Seori thanked him again, that she really felt he was a good person, but he was just trying to hide his true nature because of her words. Woojin thought about it forever. She also remembered the things she had done. For the second time in his life, since a long time ago, he felt that a girl was really cute. Unfortunately, at this time, Seori in the room under the stairs was also taking off her socks, thinking about Woojin and smiling unconsciously, but little Yu Chan also seemed to have feelings for Seori. On the other hand, little Ria had, after pursuing Yu Chan for a long time, she knew that Yu Chan's uncle was not at home, so she boldly came to visit, but did not expect that when come here, she would have to sit and help Seori take off socks. But a girl's sixth sense is always something very sensitive. Looking at the way Yu Chan cared for Seori, felt like something was wrong. She accidentally spilled water on Seori, so Yu Chan hurriedly went to find new clothes for Seori. She was about to find a way to stop Seori from wearing Yu Chan's clothes when Ria heard Woojin returning home. Because last time, Ria misunderstood that Woojin was a pervert, she was worried and tried to avoid him. Then she quickly ran away. Thinking back, she still saw that the situation was not very good. The next day, Ria decided to take all of her sister's wardrobe and give it to Seori. She said that this was something she no longer needed, so at least the concern of Yu Chan giving clothes to someone else to wear is resolved. Seori was planning to get food for Daewoo in the evening, but she forgot. Woojin told him to add some ingredients, so she decided come up to ask. But when she got up there, she sat and watched Woojin sleep. It's true that he's usually a bit eccentric, but looking closely, he was handsome. Because Woojin went to work early the next morning, the two of them didn't see each other. When Seori went upstairs to call him down for breakfast, but she only saw a toilet suction cup hanging neatly and a note to open the window, so she was extremely touched and wanted to thank him, but she couldn't keep up that day because the housekeeper was sick. So-ri replaced her in cleaning the house. Periodically, she also received a good salary. On the way back, she passed the familiar bridge from the past. Following her old habit, she clasped her hands together. She raised it up to the sky again to look at the moon. This whole image was captured in Woo Jin's eyes below. The same position and the same movement. Wasn't it the girl he was in love with before? But now everything became a painful memory. That image made his psychological trauma come rushing back. Woo Jin was scared and turned to run. He did not return home, but returned to the office to find information about the accident. 13 years ago, still the name of the victim No Sunbi. He even went to the funeral and saw her close friend. But because he was too scared, he didn't have the courage to go inside and could only turn around and leave running. Things seemed to get worse and worse. Woo Jin decided to see the psychiatrist who treated him in the past. It seemed like all the memories came back since Seo reappeared. Both times he became out of control was when he was with her. So the only thing he could do now was run away. Avoid Seo until the 1-month period has passed. But it's not like he can hide just because he wants to. Woo Jin's company is preparing to organize a big music festival. Inherently, Hee-soo is also started recruiting more people. Now she gets a call from a customer asking about the girl who answered the phone the other day. But this office originally only had her as a girl. If it weren't for her, wouldn't there be a ghost? Surely the girl who answered the phone was the one who came to find Woo Jin the day before. Hee-soo called Yu-chan to ask about the situation. He said So-ri played the violin very well, and she had even been accepted to study abroad in Germany. Thanks to that, Seo-ri was immediately accepted into the job and was in charge of the classical music department. Of course, Woo Jin strongly objected to this, but it didn't work. No matter how good he was, Hee-soo was the boss. Moreover, he couldn't even give a good reason. Woo Jin really felt stuck. Seeing So-ri every day made him feel scared, because the closer he got to So-ri, the more he missed the girl in the past, whose pain he spent a lot of time to ease somewhat. But when he saw So-ri eagerly and diligently working, he couldn't bear to say anything and chase her away. In the end, he could only stay silent and try to avoid him as much as possible. At this moment, Yu-chan was climbing the boat and suddenly felt an itch in his chest. He felt his heart vibrating. Really, that he liked someone 11 years older than him made him awkward a lot, but no one could compare to the enthusiasm of youth. Soon he regained his composure. When returned that night, he enthusiastically decorated the house with balloons to congratulate Seo-ri on getting a good job. Woo Jin, on the other hand, was the opposite. Every night, Woo Jin having a nightmare and losing sleep. Before dawn, he left the house. Not long after he left, Seo-ri also prepared to go to work. When she got to the door, she saw the housekeeper had already left a pair of shoes for her to congratulate her on her job. Seo-ri really felt like this was her second home. Everyone treated her very well, even though she was just staying. Yu-chan went downstairs to get a drink and saw that it was just after 5 a.m., but she had already gone to work, but there was no bus at this hour. Yu-chan immediately used the excuse of going to the gym to take Seo-ri to work. When Seo-ri arrived at the office, Woo Jin was not there. It seemed as he had already gone to discuss business with his partner. Hee-soo also realized that he seemed to want to avoid Seo-ri, because to make the atmosphere less awkward, the 4-member office decided to hold a new employee welcome party tonight. But there were only 3 people attending, and Woo Jin was busy wandering around measuring as usual. All of Seo-ri's life skills only stopped at the age of 17, so of course she had never drank alcohol. But just tried one sip, and it was like realizing the true love of life and drinking continuously without stopping. Yu-chan saw that it was late and Seo-ri had not returned, so he worriedly went to look for her. He found her drunk on the street, afraid of now appearing would make Seo-ri lose face, so he could only quietly follow behind. Fortunately, Seo-ri was drunk, but still found the right way home. At midnight, Seo-ri woke up to drink water. Then she followed her old habit and went to her old room on the 2nd floor and climbed into Woo Jin's bed to sleep. The next morning, Seo-ri opened her eyes and saw Woo Jin lying opposite her. Thinking she was dreaming, she calmly opened her eyes and looked at him. She even blew into Woo Jin's face. Woo Jin opened his eyes and didn't seem surprised at all. He just gently refuted to Seo-ri that this was not a dream. Seo-ri quickly got up and apologized to leave. But at this time, she heard Yu-chan calling him outside, so she quickly hid in the closet, thinking that after this, the two of them would become closer. But after all, when Woo Jin arrived at the company, he seemed not to care about Seo-ri. After that, Woo Jin completely treated her like air. Even though they were locked in the same space, they never said a word. In the end, because they were too frustrated, so Seo-ri still decided to ask Woo Jin. She wanted to know what she did wrong, that he suddenly treated her like that. She frankly expressed that she thought the two of us were close to each other, and even though she moved away, she was always grateful and found Woo Jin because he had helped her in the past. But no matter what Seo-ri said, he still coldly got in the car and left, thinking everything is the end. But the red thread is still binding the two of them. There was a sudden incident on the stage, but Hisu couldn't contact Woo Jin, so Seo-ri went directly to find him. But even though she saw his silhouette, she couldn't chase him in time. Finally, she had to take the risk and go to the radio room to announce that she was looking for someone. At this time, Woo Jin was still busy measuring everywhere without hearing anything. It wasn't until he saw everyone around him that he noticed. Then he rushed to find Seo-ri. But before he could understand what had happened, he was pulled away by Seo-ri. Although the problem was fixed because the materials were not the same, the new floor position was very slippery, but they couldn't start the show. But fortunately, Seo-ri promptly thought of a way to polish off all the smooth parts. This also seemed to save the whole company from trouble. After fixing the problem, they also rushed coming to Jin Kim's concert, their big customer this time. Even though she didn't know that the person on stage was her old rival, Seo-ri still quietly shed tears throughout the performance. At the end of the show, they met Jin Kim, but because her hands were dirty and scratched from the previous incident, this guy shook hands with Seo-ri, but did not dare to respond. When the other person heard her introduce her name as Seo-ri, they were also startled and panicked. On the way back home, Seo-ri was silent all the way. Yu-chan waited forever to see the two of them return. He saw Seo-ri's injured hand and frantically searched for medicine. He knew the hand very precious is that to a violin player. But because there was no medicine in the house, the boy hurriedly went out in the rain to search everywhere. When he returned, he saw her being bandaged by the housekeeper from the moment. At this moment, the boy felt that he was really not okay. Perhaps his feelings for Seo-ri were too great. That night, Seo-ri was peeling onions and shedding tears. Perhaps peeling onions was just an excuse for her to cry freely without fear of others laughing, but she didn't expect that heartbreaking image to catch Woo Jin's eyes. It turned out to be a happy moment, or a beautiful memory. Even the most fear and terror are with her. Every word, every sincere emotion from her is as clear as day, so he can't ignore it. She constantly makes him reconsider himself every time he ran away. Maybe Woo Jin could finally untie the knot in his heart. He could reach out to wipe away her tears. Woo Jin's feet fell on the floor because of touching a pile of onions. Not only that, but also used the hand that had touched the onion to wipe his eyes. Seo-ri intended to tease him, but unexpectedly repeated the same situation. Then a series of chaotic collisions and crashes. The romantic scenes suddenly became chaotic. Then, the two of them walked hand in hand outside to enjoy the fresh air. Finally, both of them could speak their truth. Woo Jin thanked her for saving him today, and Seo-ri also honestly said that she cried not because of the onion, but because she was jealous of Jin Kim's success. At this moment, the falling flowers were extremely romantic. She came closer, making Woo Jin misunderstand and close his eyes. Unexpectedly, in the end, it was only picking up the wing that fell on his head. Yu-chan on this side was determined to win the boat climbing prize to confess his love to Seo-ri. Early the next morning, despite the heavy rain and wind, Yu-chan still went to the training area to climb the boat, which made the two friends who saw it respectful. But Woo Jin's side has been showing more positive signs lately. This morning, the whole office was panicked when they saw Woo Jin, who had been eccentric for so long, suddenly knew how to joke. Every once in a while he smiled softly, which surprised Hisu. In the wonderfully fresh working atmosphere, there was a difficult customer who was rude to them. It took forever to chase him away, but unexpectedly, he still played tricks and deliberately left the phone behind. Then when the office was empty, he called and pretended to lure Seo-ri to bring the phone back to him. At this time, Jin-hyun and Woo Jin had just returned from discussing with a client. Thinking about the client's name from this morning made Jin-hyun angry, but because he hadn't sent the manuscript request yet, he still had to contact him first. Seeing that he seemed uncomfortable, Woo Jin had to accept this project instead. But unexpectedly, when she saw that the person on the phone was Seo-ri, she said she was going to the bar to return the phone to this custom. Hearing this, Woo Jin's face changed. After finishing speaking, Woo Jin rushed there to find her. Seo-ri's life experience was too little, so of course she couldn't recognize situations like this. She originally intended to return the phone to the person and leave, but he was tempted by him that I had called Hisu to ask for permission, then told her to stay and dine with him. Just as he raised his glass to invite her to drink, Woo Jin appeared. He happily said he had urgent work to do. They sat down to discuss the fall project and forced him to drink one drink after another. Because Woo Jin kept harassing him, he couldn't achieve his goal. In the end, he just had to go to the bathroom in anger. He walked out just in time to bump into Seo-ri, so he continued to flirt. Just now, outside, Woo Jin, when there was no one there, he poured spicy sauce into the wine, waiting for this guy to come out. Woo Jin invited him to drink this glass, making his throat hot like fire. At this time, Seo-ri returned with 2 packages of noodles because he had asked her to eat noodles earlier, so she went to buy them. Hearing this part, Woo Jin couldn't help but curse. This guy couldn't achieve his goal, so he left in anger. Seo-ri didn't understand anything and thought she did something wrong, so the customer left, so she felt guilty. Woo Jin comforted her and said she did it right. He also specifically told her to do it right right. The next time someone invites her to eat noodles, just do like that. Then the two of them left together, but Woo Jin, who couldn't drink alcohol, drank too much because he was angry, so now he was drunk. He started doing crazy things, people were drinking cocktails, and he rushed in to ask for a decorative umbrella. In the middle of the summer, he said it was about to snow, and then ran away, making So-ri chase her out of breath. Thinking of running somewhere, he immediately rushed to the soccer field. He said, "I got home," then took off his shoes and lay down to sleep. So-ri saw that and tried to pull him up but couldn't. So-ri had no choice but to borrow someone's shopping cart to push him home. She struggled to get gate, luckily met the housekeeper. This woman lifted Woo Jin into the house with both hands. The next morning, Woo Jin left the house and put his hand in his pocket to get the car key and saw a strange umbrella. All the memories last night's horror came flooding back. He didn't know where to hide his face when So-ri calmly opened the door and sat in the co-pilot's seat. She said that she was extremely qualified to give him a ride today. She also carefully showed him that she had to wear pain relief patches all over her body thanks to his favor last night. After arriving at the office, Hee-soo and Jin-hyun both realized that the two of them were unusually happy today. Moreover, obviously, Woo Jin had to go meet a client today. But why did he go to the company and then leave? Combined with recent events, combined with Woo Jin's overreaction yesterday, Hee-soo could easier guess, surely this weirdo has feelings for Se-ri. Hee-soo was happy for Se-ri, so she generously gave Se-ri her favorite bag she had just bought. Se-ri was very happy to hear that, but also, she couldn't be happy for too long. In the evening when she came home from work, she saw people from the real estate office coming to look at the house. It turned out that nearly a month had passed, and she still hadn't found her uncle or aunt, and now she couldn't ask them to continue waiting and not rush to sell this house anymore. She could only accept the fate that had been arranged. The Dr. Huang Tae was still looking for So-ri's whereabouts everywhere, even the day before the house. So-ri came to help the housekeeper clean his house, and they haven't met each other. It's just that their fates are so opposite. Woo Jin's father has decided to sell this house, so maybe they're about to move. Finally, he had the courage to open the warehouse door that contained a lot of things that year, including that girl's keychain. But suddenly he had an urgent call, so he didn't have time to lock it and left it like that until Dae-woo ran in out of fun, causing So-ri to chase after, thinking that from here So-ri would be able to see the pictures Woo Jin had drawn of her. But that didn't happen. She was about to bend down to clean up the mess that Dae-woo had caused when the housekeeper came in. Because the housekeeper said Woo Jin did not allow anyone to step foot in here, she quickly left there. Indeed, Woo Jin was also very worried about his father's decision to sell the house. He didn't know if he should take So-ri with him in Yu Chan's house. Maybe he should ask co-worker to let her stay, because after all his co-worker's house still has a spare room. That day, So-ri idly talked to Jin-hyun about her moving house. How lucky Jin-hyun was remembered that his cousin was preparing to study abroad on exchange and needed someone to take care of the fish, so So-ri had a new place to live without even losing money. When Woo Jin heard this news, he suddenly felt disappointed strangely. Jin-hyun is also proud to have just done a good deed. This makes Woo Jin feel very uncomfortable. Today, Yu Chan set a record for climbing a single boat. The boy is imagining the scenario when confessing his love to his crush, was extremely happy. But when he came home, he heard that So-ri was about to move away. Yu Chan kept begging his uncle, but he was helpless. So-ri decided to leave after the seminar ended. Even he himself was extremely disappointed. Just one day, he wished a month could pass quickly, but now he just wanted time to stop. The next day, So-ri, Woo Jin, and Jin-hyun went to the conference at the resort. In the middle of the road, they also bought all kinds of things. But after returning to Jin-hyun's car, it had trouble starting, but now they wouldn't be able to make it in time. So Woo Jin told Jin-hyun to catch the train to go first, and he and So-ri will come later. But Woo Jin then ignores Jin-hyun and drags So-ri to buy train tickets. While waiting, they happily eat spicy noodles and play together. After, while waiting, a man came and gave Woo Jin a photo of him and So-ri. Below was a note saying that this guy wished the two of them happiness. He was about to explain to this guy, but before he could say anything, So-ri had returned, so he just quietly put it in his pocket. After the meeting, So-ri wandered down the hall and saw a girl playing the violin, so she immediately came forward and applauded. The girl saw that So-ri also seemed to be a piano player, so she asked if So-ri wanted to try playing a song. The sound of the piano rang out just as the professor who had chosen So-ri to study abroad in Germany passed by. So-ri had always played was very unique, so as soon as he heard it, he recognized it. But when he arrived, he only heard that the person playing the piano had left. In fact, So-ri had just left. Because her hand hadn't recovered yet, she could only pull a part of hand and couldn't pull it any further, so So-ri could only apologize and quickly leave. Woo Jin also saw the whole scene. Knowing that she was sad, he deliberately made an excuse to invite her to go to the beach with him to relieve herself. Then the two of them walked along the beach together. It's true that space has a big impact on people's emotions when sitting in the same space. So-ri finally told him that she had been unconscious for 13 years, so she seemed to have missed missed her dream. This really shocked Woo Jin. He also wondered if something was wrong or had happened to her, but he didn't think the truth would be so harsh. So-ri was honest that her current age was strange and difficult for her. She knew she was 30 years old but had never grown up, but she's still deciding to face everything herself. That day, she accidentally read the note he threw on the rooftop. She knew he was worried about where she would live after selling the house, but she didn't want to rely on others. She wanted to walk on her own feet. On the contrary, Woo Jin felt that she was very strong. In the face of such a shock, she could still happily move forward, while he still couldn't get over himself because of the incident. 13 years ago, he finally decided to tell her about that heartbreaking story. But So-ri knew it was Woo Jin's obsession, so she told him. Needless to say, recently both of them have opened up to each other and have gradually developed more feelings for each other. On this side, Yu Chan covered his head and went to the apartment building that So-ri was about to move into. He did not expect that as an isolated area for female students, so he was kicked out by security. A 19-year-old boy, sadly looking at the photo of the person he loved and shedding tears. Even when So-ri wanted to come and say goodbye, he didn't have the courage to go out. In the end, whatever happened had to happen. The next morning was the weekend, so So-ri decided to move out. Two of Yu Chan's friends came early to give her an electric fan. The housekeeper prepared food for her to take away, and Yu Chan seemed to carry the entire pharmacy and stuff it in her hands. Everyone was very sad when they saw her go. Before leaving, So-ri also secretly gave each person their own gifts. Woo Jin took her to the apartment complex, and he also gave her photos that he had taken in every corner in the house, so she can look at it every time she remembers. The story will still be very touching until So-ri opens the door to the room she is about to move in. Surprisingly, Jin Hyun's cousin is there. It turns out her study abroad schedule was changed until the next semester, so now she no longer needs someone to feed the fish. So-ri was dragging her things on the street without knowing where to go. At that time, she boldly told Woo Jin that she wanted to be independent, and now that she is back there, she doesn't know where to put all the humiliation. So-ri slowly dragged her things to the company, but as soon as she entered the door, she heard Gunamflay. She heard Woo Jin and Hee-soo talking upstairs, so she quickly left. Woo Jin went downstairs and saw a strange object falling on the ground. This was the pepper spray that Yu Chan gave for So-ri this morning. Thinking that something must have happened to her, Woo Jin quickly chased after. At this time, So-ri was so hot that she calmly placed a fan in the middle of the street to get some cool air. While chilling, she raised her head to see Woo Jin, which startled her. Today, Woo Jin once spoke fluently in front of his crush and advised her to go home with him. When Yu Chan returned home and saw So-ri playing with Daewoo, he was extremely happy. So the house was bright now, filled with a sad atmosphere. Now it's as happy as a festival. That day, Yu Chan was at the practice area when he received a phone call from his mother. His mother said she was returning home from the airport. At first, the boy thought his mother was ended his business trip early, so he was very happy. But at this moment, Yu Chan suddenly realized that today was the weekend. Not that So-ri was also at home at this time. Thinking of this, he immediately called his uncle. Both of them immediately returned home to carry out the battle plan. But unexpectedly, when they arrived, they saw Yu Chan's mother standing at the gate with So-ri. Woo Jin quickly rushed forward to explain, but his sister spoke first. Hyunjung thought that this must be the housekeeper. But isn't the housekeeper over 40 years old? She looks much younger than her age, right? Not giving his mother time to discover anything else, Yu Chan immediately rushed to drag his mother to his room. Luckily, the housekeeper wasn't home at the moment. Hyunjung was just on the way to Japan for a conference, so he stopped by for a while. They just needed to try to cover it up for 2 hours. Yu Chan, while on duty to protect his mother, he was so tired that he fell asleep. Woo Jin immediately rushed to help, not giving his sister a chance to talk to So-ri. How could Hyunjung not notice the unusualness of these two people? Just seeing them trying to protect So-ri like that, she definitely has something very special. Not to mention her younger brother of 10 years. Silence suddenly became as lively as ever. He happily shared with his sister about the window in the attic that could be opened. Perhaps now the reason why that girl appeared, it's no longer important here. When Hyunjung got in the car to prepare to go to the airport, So-ri felt too guilty and didn't want to deceive Hyunjung, so she immediately chased after the car to tell the truth. Coincidentally, Woo Jin also just confessed to his sister. Now Hyunjung can confirm that her younger brother was really attracted to this girl. Hyunjung was very happy for her younger brother, thinking everything was okay. But in the middle of the night, the whole family was in a panic. When there was no sign of Woo Jin, they even waited until morning, but still didn't see him return. Yu Chan was afraid that his uncle would grab his things and disappear for a few months like that. That also made So-ri extremely worried. She hoped that he would come to the company, but the rest of the day there was no sign of him. Even Jin Hyun and Hee-soo did not know where he went. That afternoon on the way home from work, she suddenly froze. She saw Woo Jin standing across the street waving at her, but because she was angry that he left without saying anything, she turned around and left. Woo Jin saw that and immediately chased her. followed and pulled Seo-ri back. But the first thing he said to her was that they no longer needed to sell the house. Seo-ri heard this and was extremely moved and rushed to hug him. It turned out that he disappeared of the house in the middle of the night because he had to fly early to Jeju Island to ask his dad not to sell the house. At first his father didn't really understand, but when he heard his son say he would stay in Korea and not suddenly disappear like before, he agreed and didn't run around in vain for her. At this time, Seo-ri saying she was angry because he left without saying anything made her very worried. Being her like that, he just gently promised that from now on, he wouldn't leave like that again. After that day, both of their moods become a very good. This morning, Seo-ri was pouring water in the tea room when Woo-jin walked in. She observantly realized that his shirt button was about to break, so she offered to help him sew it. The scene was romantic when Hee-soo walked in because she was startled. Seo-ri raised her head, causing Woo-jin to almost break his nose. Putting aside that small accident, today Hee-soo had an appointment to go to the music festival to check, but because she was busy, she couldn't go. As a result, it created an opportunity for this couple to go together before heading out the door. Hee-soo was shocked to see Woo-jin throwing his fake deaf headphones into the trash. On this side, after arriving with Woo-jin preparing for the concert, Seo-ri was running around taking photos for documentation when she heard someone calling her name, so she quickly turned back. It turned out that she had left her notebook there earlier, but when she ran to where she immediately recognized that the person opposite was Professor Eun-hwan, president of the Classical Music Association. He was also the person who had previously given her the opportunity to study abroad in Germany. The professor was also very happy to see her again, but he also felt very sorry when he heard that after 13 years she was still unconscious and did not go abroad to do music activities like he thought. After saying goodbye to Professor Seo-ri and Woo-jin to eat tteokbokki, she happily wrote down Woo-jin's phone number on the lucky draw ticket, even though he felt that the chances of winning were very slim because she said she would invite, but he instead paid. So Woo-jin succeeded, asked for the gift that she had been hiding since the day she was about to move out of the house, which was a new headphone, because Seo-ri saw that his headphone was broken but still kept trying to use it. So she wanted to give him a new one, but it was of low value, so she was hesitant to give it. On the contrary, Woo-jin felt that this gift was truly more precious than anything in the world. A few days later, Woo-jin received a text message informing him that they had won a prize hot pot at the tteokbokki restaurant the other day. He happily planned to tell Seo-ri, but Jinhyun said that she was on a survey trip with Hee-soo and wouldn't return until 9 p.m., making him bored and waiting all day until evening, thinking that they were about to board the ship to return. He heard the news that there was a heavy storm on the island today, so they couldn't return tonight. Woo-jin really wanted to call and ask her, but couldn't because Seo-ri couldn't have a phone. But when he called Hee-soo, she said she was busy looking for a place to stay, so she couldn't talk, making Woo-jin restless all night. He stood up and tried to open the attic window to get some fresh air but couldn't open it. While was struggling, he saw a call from Hee-soo, but because he was too hasty, Woo-jin dropped it under the bed. He reached for it until he pressed the open button, but by the time he heard Seo-ri's voice, the other side had turned off the phone. By the time he pulled out the phone, he called back. The other end of the line could not be reached because Hee-soo's phone ran out of battery. At this time, Seo-ri was with Hee-soo, confiding about Woo-jin. Hee-soo vaguely told her that since she appeared, Woo-jin has changed a lot. He is no longer lonely and eccentric like before. But when Seo-ri wanted to ask more clearly, she quickly tried to avoid it. At this time, the phone was full of battery, but Seo-ri looked at the late time. She thought he was already asleep, so she didn't dare call. She just didn't expect that Woo-jin on the other side was in the same situation. In the end, because he couldn't sleep, he decided to listen the song that Seo-ri had suggested before. That night, there were two people in love with each other, struggling to get through the night. Thinking Seo-ri would return in the morning, he listened to Hee-soo said that the weather there was still very bad, so they couldn't return yet. As a result, he couldn't meet Seo-ri and had to rush to the meeting instead of his boss. Woo-jin was so dazed that day that he lost track of time. When he heard Seo-ri's call standing on the other side of the street, he suddenly woke up. The two of them ran like flying towards each other. The most amazing thing was that the first thing she said after they met was that she missed him. That moment made Woo-jin's heart flutter. At the same time, Yu-chan was in a separate training area because he was worried. He called Hee-soo to ask about the situation and learned that Seo-ri had returned. And while happy, he heard the other person secretly say that recently Woo-jin and Seo-ri were very close to each other. This made Yu-chan seem to realize something. He had seen the way his uncle looked at Seo-ri gently, saw a photo of the two of them together. He saw the way his uncle stood stood blankly, looking at the button. Seori sewed for him and smiled to himself. Woojin's recent positive change made him shocked to realize that the two of them could very well become lovers enemies of each other, while the nephew is still confused about his feelings. At home, Woojin and Seori are quite confused because tonight there are only two of them at home. The atmosphere suddenly becomes awkward, so the two of them quickly return to their room. Then that awkwardness gradually turned into intimacy when a bug flew into their house to harass them in the evening. The two of them turned off the lights to let the bug fly out, accidentally closing the distance. Seori's heart felt like it was about to burst out of her chest when she saw the image of him quietly looking at her. Woojin was working up the courage to take a step forward, but the romantic atmosphere turned into a joke because his stomach growled hungry. The tteokbokki hot pot became their savior at this time. So in the middle of the night, they prepared their clothes and prepared to take each other out to eat hot pot. In contrast to the romance, here, Yu-chan and the training area was confused by the thought that his uncle might like Seori, and the training was so exhausting that he couldn't stand it any longer and fainted. So instead of taking Seori away while eating hot pot, Woojin immediately rushed to the training area to take care of his nephew. Luckily, Yu-chan just had a stomach ache and over-exercising, so he fainted. The situation is now fine. The next morning he passed out. This boy woke up and saw his uncle giving him radishes to drink like the baby. He was also worried that he hadn't slept all night and hadn't eaten anything yet. But the first thing Yu-chan realized was that Seori had fallen asleep alone all night, so he quickly urged his uncle to return. It was true that Seori was so worried, waiting outside the living room all night, that she fell asleep. Fortunately, the housekeeper had returned at this time, so she immediately borrowed her phone to call Woojin. When she knew Yu-chan was okay, she breathed a sigh of relief. When sent Woojin out, Yu-chan noticed that his uncle had came here in such a hurry that he even wore indoor slippers. At this moment, Woojin called again to remind Yu-chan that he should call to thank the housekeeper because she was probably very worried, and he specifically explained the reason they are family, so he should do that. These two words, family, immediately hit Yu-chan's psychology. He remembered recently, Woojin often mentioned these two words when everyone gathered together. Finally, and Yu-chan realized that Woojin took care of everyone because he thought they were family members. The photo of the two of them was taken by others because of a misunderstanding. What about them standing together under a tree? The case was out, so Yu-chan affirmed that his uncle did not secretly love his Seori. After that, he happily played with his friends. At this time, the housekeeper told Seori that the violin repair shop called yesterday and said that the instrument had been repaired and told her to come pick it up. Hearing this, Seori quickly grabbed her savings box and went there to take the instrument home. Because she hadn't prepared enough money, she decided to make a deposit in advance and promised that when she got paid, she would come and take the instrument back. But the boss told her to take the instrument home and no need to come back here anymore. She promised him that she would never make the guitar become a waste again, then left. Soon after, she received an invitation to attend a music festival from the professor. He said the president had heard about the thing happened and he wanted to give her a chance because they couldn't play the violin piece together 13 years ago. So he hoped this time Seori could stand on stage with him to play that piece at this festival. At first, she was very worried that she would make the same mistake as before, so she worried a lot. Because of this, she became listless, making Woojin extremely worried. He always went away following behind to observe and protect her. After returning home, Seori took the newly repaired violin to practice. The images from 13 years ago seemed to come rushing back, but it quickly became a nightmare because too long without practicing, combined with the fact that she made mistakes twice recently, made Seori lack confidence. In the end, she decided to refuse the professor's offer. A few days later, Seori and Woojin went to the factory to check the production process of stage decorations. When Seori was busy running the wall, unfortunately fell down. Seori naturally reflexively sat down and curled up to protect her hands. Woojin panicked when he saw it and rushed forward. Fortunately, the wall was just decorative foam, and they were able to save it in time so she was not injured. This was also the moment that made her realize her desires and dreams never lost. Finally, thanks to Woojin's encouragement, she was determined to practice well to participate in this music festival. Regarding this, perhaps the person who is most worried is not Seori, but Jin Kim. She's always felt uneasy since seeing Seori come back, especially now that she has the opportunity to perform at a music festival. Memories of her childhood days of always being compared to Seori keep flooding in. Her success today is partly because Seori had an accident that year, so she had no opponents. Jin Kim is afraid that Seori's appearance this time will rob her of her current position. But the decision right lies lies with the professor and the organization director, so she can only sadly agree. As for Yu Chan today, he received an invitation from the best sailing team in the world. When he returned, he saw Seo-ri diligently practicing the violin in front of the yard, so he rushed over to show off his achievements. Yu Chan told Seo-ri that they should practice hard and he would come first in the competition next time, and she will give a wonderful performance. Even though she was very nervous, Seo-ri still agreed, and then the two happily showed each other the scars on their hands. From the day, decided to start practicing the violin again. So-rin became very active. During the day, she worked very hard at the theater company, and when she returned home, she diligently practiced the violin wherever she could. It seemed like the image of her from 13 years ago had returned. As she walked on the street, she could visualize musical notes. She also unconsciously wore the wrong shoes. She didn't even look at the road and almost ran into a pole. Fortunately, Woo Jin arrived in time to help her. Just like that, everything turned out well. After So-ri decided to pursue her dream again, thanks to her carefulness, Woo Jin came up with a solution to the new stage design was great. He happily took his design and ran to find her. He saw Seo-ri walking and mumbling music. In front of her, someone was watering the plants, but she didn't even notice, so had to call out loud. The moment Seo-ri turned her head, when she heard his voice, it was really similar to the one he had called that girl before. This made the psychological wound once again resurface and wrap around his mind. Seo-ri seeing Woo Jin on the other side, it didn't look right, so she quickly ran over to him. At this moment, Woo Jin's mind was in extreme pain, but this time, he didn't run away. A little remaining consciousness helped him, affirming that the two of them are completely different. Seeing the image of the girl in front of him, worrying about him to the point of tears, Woo Jin finally calmed down. He used all his courage to hug her before coming here. Woo Jin went to see his psychiatrist for many years, not to examine him but to thank him. But he decided to face everything with Seo-ri. He wanted to tell her about it, all the things that have happened in the past 13 years. He also wants to confess his feelings to her, but maybe not now. He wanted to give her time to prepare and be ready to receive him, even though he said he was fine when she got to work. So-ri still looked at him worriedly, unable to concentrate even at work, making Woo Jin had to call her over and reassure her. And he affirmed that he was fine, so that So-ri could temporarily rest assured. That night on the way back, So-ri said she really wanted to see a place with fountains and music, but she don't know where it is. But Woo Jin can only laugh. This girl really looks like she came here from time to time. He said, there are a lot of places like that now. To confirm what he said, he took her to see it right away. So-ri was like a child who saw something magical and was extremely excited to see it. After that, they did not go home but went to the Han River together to admire the scenery. This image of Woo Jin being cheerful and lively made So-ri happy, felt so beautiful. She felt that perhaps he had put all his burdens down so that he could continue to live happily. This morning, Yu Chan went downstairs and So-ri called him childish because he had cream sauce on his mouth, which made the boy psychologically traumatized. Because in order to affirm that he was a grown man, he wore a suit and styled his hair handsomely to attend the coach's wedding. When returned, he deliberately stood beside the bus waiting for Seo-ri. He told himself that looking at him mature like that, they were definitely a perfect match. Surely no one would notice that they were 11 years apart. But life was not like dream. While Yu Chan was walking next to Seo-ri, a woman came and asked if the student had dropped his business card. Yu Chan felt disappointed, so his plan to try to look like Seo-ri's age failed. Little Yu Chan was psychologically traumatized for the second time that day. After saying goodbye to Yu Chan, So-ri immediately went to the company, even though it was a day off. As soon as Woo Jin saw her, he was very happy. That night, when everyone had gone home, he cautiously asked So-ri that her body couldn't be overworked. Although Seo-ri insisted that she was fine, he researched and knew that her condition should be better to do regular inspections. The next day, while Seo-ri was practicing the piano in the park, it suddenly started to rain. She hurried back home and suddenly remembered that the housekeeper was working part-time today. She was afraid that the butler didn't bring an umbrella, so Seo-ri hurriedly took the umbrella and went to find. At this time, at Hoon-tae's apartment, the housekeeper was coming out the door and saw Hoon-tae returning. Because last time she was sick, she had to ask So-ri to clean up, so she couldn't receive payment several times recently. He knew she would refuse, so he specially prepared the tonic as a gift because couldn't refuse anymore. The housekeeper also accepted it and said goodbye to him. When she arrived downstairs, she discovered it was raining heavily, but she forgot to bring an umbrella. At this time, Hoon-tae quickly ran down and gave her an umbrella and quickly left. That's why he couldn't see So-ri carrying another umbrella heading this way. Anyway, went out, so the housekeeper invited her to go to the hairdresser to change her appearance a little. Everything should have been going very smoothly, but they couldn't have imagined that there was a huge conspiracy behind it. Today, Woo Jin and Hee Soo went to meet the head of the music festival's organizing committee, but while was out answering the phone, Woo Jin accidentally heard that this man wanted to use Seo-ri's image of an unconscious piano player for 13 years as a trick to sell tickets. That old man didn't care about Seo-ri's talent. As this man always say, he did not believe that a person who had been in a vegetative state for 13 years could still continue to play the violin. Even if she succeeds in attracting pity, that is still a trick extremely good to make money. Woo Jin was extremely angry. Returning to the office, he immediately forced Seo-ri not to attend that concert anymore. But because he was afraid of hurting her, he used the excuse that it affected her performance at the company. Seo-ri was like a lightning strike in her ears. She didn't understand why he was suddenly like that, but no matter how much she begged, he wouldn't agree. In the end, because was too frustrated, Seo-ri grabbed her violin and left. But even when she got to the center, she couldn't concentrate and kept making mistakes. Jin Kim took advantage of this point to hint at her that she was just a billiards trick of the concert. Jin Kim blamed her for not having talent, but still had to practice hard because there were many people out there who bought tickets to see her determination to live. Only then did Seo-ri realize the real reason. Woo Jin forced her to give up attending the concert. She went to the company to find him, but not to apologize, but to blame him for meddling in her life. She said she even became a trick. So what's the point of selling tickets? It's true that she was in a coma for 13 years and couldn't practice the violin, so what's the point of being taken advantage of a little bit? After all, what she wanted was to stand on the stage once, at least let the uncle who abandoned her see her and come to her, so what right does he have to stop her? Woo Jin was really heartbroken when he heard these words. Maybe she thought it was okay, but he was very sad upset. He frankly said that he hated seeing the woman he liked getting hurt. Because of this argument, Seo-ri still didn't come home late at night. Woo Jin waited anxiously at the door, received Yu Chan's call. The boy asked if Seo-ri practiced very hard because he saw her calling the housekeeper to say she had to stay in the music room to practice tonight. Getting the key information about the location, Woo Jin quickly ran to the center, but heard the security guard say that no one was there. In fact, Seo-ri was always there, but because she sat absent-mindedly, she didn't make a sound. So when the security guard entered, didn't observe carefully, and just turned off the power. The next morning, Seo-ri didn't come to the company either. Woo Jin was worried, but went to the music center again and met the professor. He said Seo-ri had come to see him, and refusing to participate in the performance, Seo-ri told the professor that there was an old woman at the park who liked to listen to her play the violin. But when the old woman asked her what she did for a living, she couldn't confidently tell her that she is a violinist. After hearing these words, Woo Jin went everywhere looking for Seo-ri, but couldn't find her. Then, as fate would have it, he finally saw her on that familiar bridge. His heart burst, and he rushed over and hugged her and said he was sorry that he had said things that hurt her. But Seo-ri didn't think so. She was really grateful to him for doing that. Her mother gave her this instrument to remind her not to go on stage to perform if she wasn't proud of herself, even though she didn't say it out loud. But Seo-ri knew that her uncle had long ago abandoned her. If she continued to use that excuse to perform, it might make her hate music like he said. Fortunately, Seo-ri was able to see his good intentions. For 2 days, her disappearance made Woo Jin afraid that maybe he interfered in other people's lives and ended up ruining everything again. All misunderstandings were cleared up. Seo-ri suddenly said, "This place is truly a wonderful place. Every time they meet on this bridge, something good happens." Thought that after that day, the company would have to cancel the stage construction contract because Seo-ri offended the head of the organizing committee. But God really has eyes. That old man was arrested for drinking and driving. Now, they can safely continue to carry out their plan. At the same time, at the music center, the professor came to see Jin Kim. He asked her already have everything her want. Why does she care so much about Seo-ri? It turns out he knew everything she did, including her jealousy since they were 17 years old. He let her know. Why do he like Seo-ri? Because she always shows her absolute love for music. Seo-ri will always have a way to create music without following any rules. But Jin Kim is also his student, and the fact that she is currently very successful in music, so he hopes that she will not lower herself by comparing herself to others. He hoped that she would not lose her joy in music because she was busy chasing jealousy. The music festival finally took place. Instead of participating in the performance, Seo-ri ran everywhere to take care of everyone. But the image of her standing from afar watching everyone practice made Woo Jin understand that she was really sad. He made an excuse to sit with Seo-ri on the grass listening to music and then lean on her shoulder to sleep. Seo-ri knew this. His intention was to comfort her, to make her mood better. But Seo-ri was really okay. She didn't regret her decision at all. At the same time, Jin Kim was down there because of what the professor said that day. Her mood was unstable. Even the music became difficult to hear, causing her to loudly, angrily yell at the sound department. Seo-ri accidentally saw saw that scene, so she went to see her. Seori also didn't know Jin Kim had bad intentions towards her. Seori just wanted to thank her for telling her the truth, but seeing Seori express that she was jealous of everything, she had made her feel like she was how petty. After all, she herself tortured herself by comparing herself to others and denying her own efforts over the years. Thanks to Seori, she realized the path of truth. At this time, the music team informed Jin Kim that the percussionist suddenly had an allergic reaction. She immediately went to ask Seori for help. Perhaps she wanted to use this to make up for some of her pettiness, because Seori knew the entire music, so even when she didn't have a violin in her hand, she performed wonderfully. Moreover, standing on stage as a substitute percussionist, not a violin player, who has been in a coma for 13 years, as a ticket sales tactic helps her enjoy the stage happily, especially after the show ended. Woojin came to see Seori and gave her a picture. In the picture was a picture of her happily standing on stage. This gift made Seori so touched that she burst into tears, realizing that as long as she did anything related to the stage, she would be very happy. At this moment, Woojin mustered all the courage to blurt out the 3 words, "I like you," but he didn't expect her to answer me too. The two people turned to look at each other passionately and then moved forward to give each other a passionate kiss. But this was Seori's first time doing that, so she suddenly pulled away because she felt her heart beating too hard. She honestly admitted that she was nervous because this was her first kiss, but when heard the other person say that I was the same, Seori immediately burst into tears. She clearly had a legitimate reason, but what did the man in front of her do with his life when he was 30 years old and then knew how to fall in love? Just after confirming relationship, lover teases, making Woojin feel embarrassed and run away first. Then, like any other couple, the two happily hold hands, kissing each other's cheeks. Seori went to the company the next day to say she was quitting her job because her part-time contract had ended, while Woojin was worried that Heesoo had read Woojin's thoughts, so she continued hire Seori as an official employee. Not only that, she also used company funds to buy Seori a phone for easy communication because they had just completed a big project. They could rest for a few days before returning to work, hand in hand, enjoying a rare joy. Woojin knew Seori always wanted to find her uncle, so he took her to the place where the ads were printed. Because printing banners took a lot of time, they decided to make flyers looking for people. They had a break after the music festival, so they held hands and went home. They want to do a fix, because to make it easier to search, Seori decided to tell Woojin about 13 years ago. She saw her uncle in Seoul on the day of her accident, while he said he had a foreign business schedule. Woojin felt that this was suspicious, so he immediately searched for information about Seori's uncle's company. But what he found was just announced that this man would go bankrupt a long time ago. As for Yu Chan, thanks to his best efforts, he won a bronze medal in the group boat race, and today is the day he will compete individually. It can be said that the boy practiced a lot today, because he was determined to win, to confess his love to Seori. Because was on vacation early in the morning, Woojin and Seori came to cheer for Yu Chan. At the beginning of the competition, his legs suddenly ached constantly, causing Yu Chan to start quite slowly. This made Woojin and everyone extremely worried, but after thinking about Seori and determined to confess his love to her after winning, he felt empowered and suddenly accelerated, finally succeeded in winning at the last minute. Yu Chan let go of the oars like he had gone a very long and difficult way, but finally successfully reached the finish line. That side, Woojin was also moved to the point of falling into tears when the nephew who used to follow him was now an adult. After the award ceremony, Woojin intended to hold a party for Yu Chan, but he said he had a busy schedule today, then took advantage of Woojin's time to look for the notebook that Seori thought she left at the flower shop where Yu Chan asked her to go out alone. Seori's notebook was the notebook with the 3 words Woo Seori written on it so prominently that it made the shop owner realize something. Then when Woojin was planning to return to the flower shop, he saw her holding a notebook and walking towards her. But before he could thank her, this people frantically ran away when they heard Seori's voice, feeling that there must be something was unusual. So after he brought Seori home, he quickly went back to the flower shop to investigate. Woojin guessed correctly. This woman was Seori's aunt, Mi-hyun. But as soon as she saw Woojin, she quickly ran away. At this time in the inner city of Seoul, Jin Kim asked Seori to say goodbye before she went to Germany to study abroad. This is also quite surprising, when Jin Kim is currently the youngest violinist to become a lecturer at the conservatory. Perhaps after everything she felt, she was not qualified to teach others anything. As for Yu Chan, he was extremely excited today and even brought his motorbike. He also carefully made reservations at the restaurant. He thought he would have a romantic date with Seori, but it didn't work out because he wasn't familiar with the route the boy followed, the locator, but got lost until he didn't know where he got got lost. Then the phone ran out of battery. Not stopping there, the car suddenly staggered, causing both of them to fall to the ground. The 19-year-old boy was confused and didn't know what to do when the police came and took him and the car away. In the end, Woo Jin still had to go to the police station to deal with the consequences. As soon as left, Woo Jin discovered that Yu Chan was walking a bit strangely. Woo Jin pulled down his leg and discovered that the boy's ankle was swollen, so he quickly brought it to him. Went to the hospital. It turned out that Yu Chan had sprained himself 2 weeks ago, but because it was the competition day recently, he didn't tell anyone and just endured it alone. The doctor said he needed to be admitted to the hospital for follow-up and admission if necessary. At this moment, where was Huang Tae rushing to hug Seo-ri tightly. Woo Jin and Yu Chan, not understanding what was going on, immediately stood up to protect her. Huang Tae quickly explained that he was friends of Seo-ri, only because Huang Tae has changed so much that Seo-ri doesn't even realize it. When the two of them talked privately, she still used honorifics. She couldn't believe that Huang Tae was so chatty when he was little and dreamed of being a singer, but in the end, he became a doctor. She also apologized to him because she really unable to adapt. He looked like a stranger she had never met, although it was very painful. Huang Tae could only accept it so she could gradually adapt. He also lied that her aunt and uncle were staying there, abroad, and Naksumi lost contact to avoid causing her pain. When returned to Yu Chan's hospital room, Huang Tae thanked everyone for taking care of Seo-ri. Then he said he wanted to perform in-depth tests on Seo-ri, then took her to live with him. When Woo Jin and Yu Chan heard that they were extremely angry, they were about to fight, but Seo-ri quickly stopped. She said she wanted to live with her family, and her family here, of course, includes Woo Jin and Yu Chan. While in pain, Huang Tae accidentally meets Woo Jin to go through the hospitalization procedure for Seo-ri as a guardian and nominally as a boyfriend. So I immediately wanted to fight. He frankly admitted that he had secretly loved Seo-ri for 15 years, and Woo Jin had only met her for a few months and dared to call himself as her guardian. Woo Jin immediately objected. No matter how much you like her, I'm the one who can bring her happiness. Woo Jin also thanks Huang Tae's appear because Seo-ri really misses her friend, but also hopes the relationship will stop there. Although Huang Tae is very angry, he has no basis to argue back now, so he has to let it go. He also often saw images of Seo-ri happily with new friends, but his heart ached. A few days later, Seo-ri had completed her checkup and was ready to be discharged from the hospital. While cleaning up the belongings of a colleague of Huang's, accidentally told her about Naksumi's death in the accident that year. When Woo Jin went to look for her, he found her crying outside the hospital, so they went together to pay their respects to her friend. When they arrived, he wanted to let Seo-ri have privacy with her friend, but as soon as he heard Seo-ri call the name Naksumi, he panicked and rushed over. He looked at the photo of the three of them, and then looked at the photo of her friend named Naksumi. All the memories came rushing back. The misunderstandings were completely resolved. Woo Jin seemed to understand everything and moved forward to hug Seo-ri. Now he has the answer for himself at the age of 17. Her name is Woo Seo-ri, and more importantly, she is alive. At the hospital, Yu Chan went through the room to look for Seo-ri, but couldn't find him. Just when a nurse came in and said she wanted to find Seo-ri's boyfriend to do the procedure. At first, he thought maybe they were wrong, but when he heard the name Woo Jin, he was stunned. After a few minutes, Yu Chan was confused and wanted to rush to ask his uncle for clarity, but was held back by the doctor because his leg had not recovered. He insisted on being discharged from the hospital, causing the doctor to take him for a re-examination, but they could not have expected that his leg would recover so quickly. In the end, because there was no other reason, had to let him go. Yu Chan immediately changed his clothes and ran quickly home. On this side, Seri and Woo Jin had also returned home. She wondered because she missed her best friend in Tan, and she was sad, but why did Woo Jin look even more painful and unstable than her? Even since he was there, he hasn't looked at her when he spoke. But no matter how much she asked, he refused to say anything. He only replied that he was tired and wanted to go to his room to rest first. She had no choice but to tell the housekeeper that she needed to rest for a bit. Perhaps for him this shock was too great. After waking up, Woo Jin returned to his room in a daze. As soon as the door closed, he couldn't hold on any longer and collapsed. Although he was very happy that Seo-ri was alive, he can't get rid of the feeling of guilt. It was because that year, he told them to get off at the next stop that they both had an accident and caused Seo-ri to lose her best friend. It was because of him that she had to lie in the hospital bed to 13 years. Moreover, those 13 years were still youth, the most precious time to learn and develop as a person. At this moment, he really didn't know how to face the girl he loved. When Yu Chan arrived home, he didn't see anyone. He only heard the housekeeper say that Seo-ri knew everything about that year. So now she was very sad and needed to rest. So the boy immediately rushed upstairs looking for his uncle, but when he opened the door, he couldn't find Woo Jin in the room. He searched the whole house but couldn't find any sign of Woo Jin. Finally, the boy went into the warehouse and was frightened when he saw his uncle with tears streaming down face. The worried boy rushed to hug his uncle and asked him all kinds of questions. Wu Jin still refused to say a word. He followed his uncle up to the room, but was kicked out by Wu Jin, so he had no choice but to do so. Yu Chan wanted to go down to see what happened in the warehouse, but he only saw the things Wu Jin used when he was in school. Thinking about what happened 13 years ago made Yu Chan even more worried. He was afraid that Wu Jin would disappear again and rushed away. Went upstairs to check. Fortunately, although he was not in the room, Wu Jin came out of the bathroom. Yu Chan remembered the day Wu Jin decided to go to Germany to live with his family. That day he also cried a lot. Since that day, Wu Jin became more and more withdrawn and distant from everyone. Wu Jin was no longer the cheerful and lively uncle he used to be, even though he knew something must have happened. But for many years, Wu Jin has never shared that with anyone, so Wu Jin's expression today makes him really afraid that Wu Jin will shun everything again and suddenly disappear. To prevent everything from happening, Yu Chan decided to take the risk and tear up his uncle's passport. Wu Jin didn't even bother to scold him, but just invited him down to eat, and from then on the boy kept clinging to power. Wu Jin did not leave, even standing in front of Wu Jin's room to guard in case he escaped. As for So-ri, because she was so tired she slept without eating or drinking anything. That's why when she woke up it was the next morning. Upstairs, Yu Chan had also woken up with a start after falling asleep and was on duty to guard his uncle. But he guessed correctly that Wu Jin was no longer in the room. He looked around the house but couldn't find Wu Jin. When he called the phone, the bell rang again in the warehouse, making So-ri curious and go in. This time she actually saw the painting Wu Jin drew of her that year. When she rushed into the house to ask him, she saw Yu Chan also frantically looking for his uncle. So-ri quickly asked Yu Chan if he knew anything about the painting, because she remembered everyone saying Wu Jin graduated from high school in Germany. Yu Chan also replied that Wu Jin moved there in 12th grade, and it seemed like something happened around that time that he didn't know about. Yu Chan also asked her what happened. Then her answer about the accident 13 years ago made the butler standing behind her startled and shed tears. It turned out they were all related to each other in one way or another. Because of the accident that year, the housekeeper's husband passed away. Then because she was too sad, she lost the child in her womb. And because of that shock, but became stiff like now, Yu Chan saw the housekeeper suddenly shed tears, so he quickly asked about her, but she just said nothing happened. At this moment, when he remembered something, Yu Chan quickly rushed upstairs to check the wardrobe. His uncle's shirt, everything was still there. That's why he accidentally dropped Wu Jin's painting tube. So-ri quickly picked it up. She was always impressed with the guy brought this picture tube 13 years ago. To confirm everything she said, Yu Chan brought her a photo of Wu Jin in high school, and she found the answer when she saw the teenager that year. Perhaps it was because of her that Wu Jin left. Yu Chan saw that So-ri was worried and quickly reassured her that Wu Jin would not go far because the boy tore up Wu Jin's passport. But the housekeeper said that the passport had expired, which startled the boy, so Wu Jin had really left. Indeed, Wu Jin was at the airport right now, bought a ticket. He said that he wanted to go anywhere, just disappear from this place immediately. Then following his previous habit, he took out his headphones and continued to wear them, even though he didn't turn on the music to avoid outside world. On this side, So-ri and Yu Chan also rushed to the airport, seeing So-ri crying all the way. Yu Chan understood that perhaps this was the clearest answer for him. So-ri kept muttering, confessing that it turned out everything wasn't a dream. Last night, Wu Jin really came to see her. He said goodbye and just left. But now, they probably won't be able to make it to the airport in time, because Wu Jin got on the plane. Last night before leaving, he even said goodbye to Daewoo. So now the dog at home keeps standing in front of So-ri's room barking loudly. The Mandarin feels suspicious, so he opens the door and enters youth. And seeing the letter Wu Jin left for So-ri, Yu Chan told So-ri that they should go back. As soon as she saw the letter and the keychain, So-ri was able to confirm all her thoughts completely. She hesitated before daring to open it and read it. In the letter, Wu Jin wrote that the first time he met her was when he was returning from his gallery. Because he heard the sound of wind chimes, he looked up at the overpass and saw her. At that very moment, he was impressed by that little girl. After that, he happened to see her on the street several times. Sometimes while walking without looking at the road, people threw water on her, while happily walking on the street without realizing that she was wearing mismatched shoes. That's why he was very curious about her. He always won. He really wanted to be friends with her. Then when he saw her wearing a uniform with the name Nosumi on it, he thought that was her name. That day on the bus, he told her to go one more stop and get off there, intending to catch Story, and gave her the picture he had drawn. But suddenly her best friend came up, making him shy and run away. When he got out of the car, he realized he had taken her keychain with him, so he quickly chased after her. So he witnessed the entire accident. Everything became extremely extremely chaotic before his eyes, especially when he saw Nosumi's name on the notice board. He thought she was dead. Then he saw her appear in his life again. But one thing never changes, that he is the one who destroyed her life. He thought he was not qualified to be with her. He said sorry for everything. In the letter, Woo Jin admits all the faults about herself, that if it weren't for him, she wouldn't have lost 13 years of her life, wouldn't have been abandoned by her uncle and aunt, and the whole house she loved. He thought he was the one who took away her childhood and youth, was the one who ruined her entire life. So-ri read those words and couldn't stop crying. Just like that, she sadly hugged the letter and walked to the bridge. She once said that this was a special place. Every time he went missing, she could find him there. She hoped this time would be the same, but the harsh reality made her extremely miserable. Yet Woo Jin was actually standing in front of her. It turns out Woo Jin changed his mind right before the plane took off. He promised that he would always be by her side, so he needed to keep his promise. This time, he won't run away again, because he kept thinking about what he should do to comfort her, and forgot that he also made everyone very worried. Actually, Woo Jin had some thoughts, or should he just stay silent and pretend everything was okay, had happened, and he had never met her during those years. But in the end, his conscience did not allow him to do that. If he had known everything in advance, he would definitely not have loved her. If so, he could easy to leave, like other times. But because he already loves her, he really can't live without her. So even though he knows he's not qualified, he wants to use the rest of his life to make up for her. While Woo Jin was engrossed in talking Asat, So-ri was on the opposite side and gently smiled. Finally, she spoke up and said, Gong Woo Jin. His name is Gong Woo Jin. What if it wasn't just that? What if what he knows isn't everything? While Woo Jin keeps blaming himself, thinking that because he secretly likes her, because of him, she became like that. But on So-ri's side, completely different. She remembers very clearly, because for her everything happened recently, when she flew to Germany to attend the competition and saw a child crying at the airport. What a coincidence that that boy was the Yu-chan. Because Yu-chan said he lost his mother, she took the boy to look for him, but forgot the violin on the waiting chair. When she came back, it was nowhere to be found. So-ri was very panicked, because it was the violin that her mother gave her. Luckily, when she went to the reception desk to ask, she learned that a student, afraid that children running around would drop it, so brought it here to help her. That was the first time they met, when So-ri chased after Woo Jin, wanting to thank Woo Jin, but couldn't make it in time. That's why she was always impressed with Woo Jin's Pororo picture tube. Until one time, So-ri saw Woo Jin in front of a convenience store. It was still the act of watering that plant, but she still couldn't keep up with it. After that, he passed by her a few more times, and each time his appearance was adorable. Every time she saw him, her heart would beat faster. Actually, that keychain was originally made by her as a gift for him. Because the day was approaching to go to Germany, she prayed every day to be able to meet him. Finally, her prayer came true that day. So-ri saw Woo Jin getting on the bus. She originally intentionally went to ask for directions to start a conversation with Woo Jin, but in the end she didn't dare to give him a gift and just rambled on. After she mustered up her courage and tried to stand up again, then Woo Jin came and told her to get off at the next stop. Hearing Woo Jin say he knew her and had something to give her, his heart felt like it was about to jump out of his chest. He didn't expect that at this moment, her friend was going up, so he thisens. She was shy and ran away, while So-ri was happy because she knew that Woo Jin also knew her. The accident suddenly happened, although he was surprised by what So-ri said. Woo Jin still thought it was his fault, so she had an accident. She could only admit that asking for directions that day was just an excuse, because that was the studio she went to every day, so she could have gotten there, even if she closed her eyes. In her heart, she already had to get off at the next stop. She had been going that way for many years, so she had no intention of changing, so it had nothing to do with him. She was so scared that she didn't have time to say it all, but he had already left. Even if she didn't see him that day, she would still get off at the next stop, and perhaps the accident would still happen because it was fate. She was the one who knew him first and vibrated with him first, so he was completely innocent. Woo Jin choked up and went to give his lover a kiss after everything they had been through together, a kiss of happiness, as well as liberation from the pain that Woo Jin had to go through for many years. Then, the two of them held hands and returned home. If only they had met again 13 years ago, everything would have been better. But even though the time that has passed will never change, she hopes they will start a new beginning together from this moment, when the two of them return to the butler's house, and Yu-chan is very happy. Woo Jin says sorry because he is a stupid uncle who always makes his nephew worry. But for Yu-chan now, as long as Woo Jin returns, he will be happy. That's all he needs. That night, the two of them sat drinking coffee in the garden. Maybe Woo Jin planned to tell Yu-chan everything, but the boy said he understood everything. Yu-chan also knew that his uncle would never leave again. In the end, he just had to let go of his own feelings. The next day, when Woo-jin was still sleeping, Yu-chan took So-ri to the place where he competed. He still wanted to complete the failed outing the day before. The two of them sat, admiring the scenery and eating noodles. Then Yu-chan took her to the place where he often practices, and then rode a rickshaw together. Yu-chan was very happy that day. He also considered his wish fulfilled. While walking together along the river, Yu-chan confided that he wanted to take her to the most familiar place to express his feelings, that he liked her very much. Of course, not like family members, but like he saw her smiling, and he was happy. But if she cried, his heart would be uncomfortable. He originally intended to tell her not to care about age, because in a few months he will join the professional team. He will become a member of the professional team, became an adult, and determined to pursue her. But today, he only said these words so that he could feel relieved and give up, because he wanted to give his first love a decent ending. In this situation, So-ri really didn't know what to say. She just felt guilty because she had accidentally hurt the boy in front of her. Yu-chan said he was fine. He thanked her for helping Woo-jin become a better than before, and told her to treat him normally like before, and he was satisfied. Then Yu-chan told So-ri to go back first because he wanted to stay alone, as well as give himself take some time to mourn his own immature feelings. Recently, Woo-jin has been living in a world filled with the pink color of love. Woo-jin was at the bookstore when he received a call from Hoon-tae to meet up. He was talking about the person who had paid Seo-ri's hospital bills for the past 11 years since her aunt and uncle disappeared. Recently, that person came to see Hoon-tae and begged to meet Seo-ri once. Hoon-tae wanted to tell Woo-jin, let him discuss with her first and then decide. After returning, Woo-jin immediately told Seo-ri about this. Also said that he had recently met her aunt but had not yet heard any news about her uncle. Seo-ri called the number Woo-jin gave her but could not reach. Perhaps she was afraid that So-ri would find her, so she ran away. So-ri really wanted to know why her uncle and aunt abandoned her when they loved her so much before. At this moment, outside the door, that mysterious man appeared. He knelt down and asked So-ri for forgiveness, guilty because he was the one who caused the terrible accident. That year, before driving, he drank alcohol. In the end, because of a little carelessness on his part, he made so many people miserable. At that time, he witnessed all the chaos with his own eyes, the dead and injured lying around, but because he was too scared, he ran away, until he learned that a little girl was in a deep coma. He also often went to the hospital, until one day the nurses talked about how no one had paid her hospital bills for a long time, so he had secretly paid the hospital bills for 11 years. After hearing that she had regained consciousness, he planned to turn himself in, but he still wanted, once properly apologized to her. So-ri really couldn't keep calm when she heard these words, but not only her, the housekeeper behind her couldn't keep calm either. She rushed to grab her collar him and cried about what he had endured for the past 13 years. He was the one who took her husband's life. Woo-jin and So-ri rushed to comfort her. That man could only continuously bowed his head and apologized to them, then went to the police station. After that day, things gradually returned. Early in the morning, Yu-chan went down and meet So-ri, but she be avoiding him. He proactively made the atmosphere less tense, and thanks to that, she gradually relaxed and teased and cheered him on for the next tournament. Today, while working at So-ri's office, she received a text message from a stranger. It said she wanted to meet So-ri after picking up a flyer looking for someone, but all she knew was that So-ri's aunt often came to buy food and had divorced husband. This one had never seen her uncle appear for many years. Only then did Woo-jin tell her that So-ri's uncle's company had gone bankrupt. The person who sold the house was her aunt. Maybe that was the reason they divorced. Now So-ri understood why her aunt didn't want to meet her. After all, they weren't related by blood, but now she was worried about not knowing where her uncle was. They went to the flower shop together, but it was closed. Even when they asked around, there was no news. When they returned home, their aunt suddenly appeared. In fact, Mi-hyun had wanted to meet So-ri many times, but because she felt guilty, she had only now had the courage to come see So-ri. She thanked God that So-ri had wake up. The aunt also sincerely apologized for abandoning her. When she calmed down, her aunt also gave her a diary. It was the confession that her uncle had written. That year, her uncle lied about going on a business trip because the company was about to go bankrupt and he wanted to solve it alone. Unexpectedly, that was the day So-ri had the accident. He wished that that day he could take her to the center instead of letting her take the bus. He always wanted to protect her, so even though her aunt advised him to sell the house to solve the company's problems, he couldn't because her uncle knew that So-ri loved this house very much, and he always believed that she would soon woke up. Because of overwork, heart attacks gradually appeared, but instead of getting treatment, he decided to divorce his wife so that she would not be involved in the bankruptcy. along with transferring the name of the house so she could keep it for Seo-ri. Then just about a month later, he passed away from a relapse right next to Seo-ri's hospital bed. This was the second time Seo-ri had been in such pain since then. She woke up. The two of them were in front of her uncle's grave. Woo-jin gave a letter saying that her aunt had sent it back, containing a key to the bank safe and money from the sale of the house. The money has been sitting there all these years, and she hasn't touched a penny. She's always waiting for the day Seo-ri wakes up to pay her, because these days, Seo-ri's mood is very bad, making Woo-jin extremely worried. After a while, he finally decided to take her and Daewoo to the beach for a walk. They admired the scenery, took pictures and played together. Fortunately, she felt better. Seo-ri felt grateful that he always by her side. A few days later, Woo-jin and Seo-ri went to the hospital to see his psychotherapist, but not for treatment. They were preparing for a healing music session, because he had promising to help this man. From here, Woo-jin realized Seo-ri's smile when working with music was very happy. Even when she wasn't on stage, he remembered he had a book called Music is Therapy for the Soul, so he brought it to her as a gift. Unexpectedly, Seo-ri also had the same book. She said that after performing at the music festival, she felt very happy, and her previous anxiety and self-consciousness gradually disappeared. Woo-jin suddenly had the idea to ask her if she wanted to consider this career. Actually, Seo-ri also had this thought, but wanting to be a therapist needed at least a master's degree. While currently she hadn't graduated from high school yet, it seemed a bit difficult. While she was still wondering about her future path, Seo-ri received an email sent by Jin Kim. She said she was studying abroad and was very excited. Coincidentally, the place where she studied was the same place where Seo-ri had planned to study abroad. Jin Kim showed the professor Seo-ri's previous videos, and he recognized her, so he proposed. Jin Kim asked her if she wanted to go to Berlin to start a new beginning. Jin Kim was very grateful to Seo-ri for helping her enjoy music, so she also wanted to help Seo-ri. She hoped that Seo-ri would perform. Don't give up on her own talent. After returning home, Seo-ri asked Woo-jin's opinion about it, but he wanted her to decide for herself, not anyone else, because he will be by her side until the end for the rest of her life. So if she decides to leave, he will often visit her there. He hopes she will think about what she wants. Seo-ri is still wondering whether to stay or go to study abroad in Germany to fulfill her dream. Unfinished, but now she is 30 years old, so it is difficult to start over. Maybe she should do things suitable for her age. In the end, Seo-ri decided to send an email to Jin Kim and arranged to meet her in Berlin, even though he said he respected his girlfriend's decision. When Seo-ri left, he was still very worried. Woo-jin told her everything in the world. He even wrote a long note about things she needed to pay attention to in Germany, because he also lived there for a while. After she left the next morning, Woo-jin cried so much that the whole office was filled with tears. Because he missed his lover when he returned at night, he didn't bother to talk to anyone. Hen the butler and Yu-chan approached to say something. Woo-jin dismissed them. Then he went back to his room and closed the door sadly. At this moment, Woo-jin just noticed that Seo-ri left him a letter. In the letter she said she was sad because it took them so long to be together and they had to say goodbye again, but she thought this was the best chance right now for her. She told him she realized one thing when writing the letter: it was the best opportunity, not the only one. So why did she have to go? Why did she have to leave her loved ones? While she could stay and slowly enjoy the time appropriate to her age, she said that she was at the same place, waiting for him. Reading this, Woo-jin quickly ran to the overpass to meet his girl. At this point, Woo-jin realized that everyone knew that she wasn't going, but he was the only one who didn't know. Everyone tried to tell him, but he made himself sad and didn't answer anyone, even though it important that she stay. Woo-jin was so happy that he cried. He really didn't want her to leave, but because he was afraid that he would hinder her future, he didn't dare say it. Fortunately, Seo-ri decided to stay. She said she just wanted to stay with him and start things slowly. A few months later, Yu-chan moved out of the house because his parents had returned after a half-year business trip. The housekeeper also left because her contract for each house was only for 6 months. Woo-jin talked she could stay, but she said she didn't want to be a housekeeper anymore, but wanted to recover from all those years of suffering to live differently. Today, he once again won the gold medal in the national boat race. That night, Yu-chan visited his uncle and Seo-ri. The two of them were preparing a party to celebrate Yu-chan's victory. Two close friends of Yu-chan also appeared. At times like this, they missed the housekeeper, and sure enough, the housekeeper appeared. She appeared behind the door with an extremely beautiful and seductive appearance that made everyone very happy. Because seeing the dishes on the table were a bit small, so she went and cooked a few more dishes for them to celebrate. Then they took a commemorative photo together. The scene changes to the image of Seo-ri playing the violin for charity at the rehabilitation hospital. Coming back here with a new position truly made her extremely happy, especially when Jin Kim came to reunite with her today. They had a very special concert as promised last year. Now, when Woo-jin goes out, he asks permission from others and clearly states the reason before wanting to measure something. Yu-chan and his two close friends practiced diligently every day. The housekeeper became a chef with the name Really Hwang Ni-jong. Hee-soo's company is doing well, and they were even awarded the stage production category. Woojin and Seori finally got married. This morning, they decided to open the door in the attic and once again enjoy that wonderful atmosphere together. This door is not simply a door to catch the sun, but it carries a profound meaning to the fate of the two of them, that when a door closes, another door leading to happiness will open. This is the end of the movie. Thank you for your attention. Goodbye, and see you in the next videos.